Okay, so let's try to get a start on our story, a study in Scarlet. Now, um, you can do this in any device you wish. You can do the reading. There is a audiobook that I've sent to you if you like to listen to the book on audio. You can do a little reading, a little listening, whatever suits your fancy. Just get through it. This is a rather long story. It's actually in two parts. The first part takes place in London, and the second part takes place in America, out west, in Utah. Now, let's talk a little bit about, compared to the reading of Poe, I found Poe to be a really difficult read. Older English grammar, sentence structure, not a lot of detail. Conan Doyle is absolutely the opposite. Much easier to read. It's a quicker read. You don't have to figure out a lot of the meanings of the sentences. It's pretty clear. And Doyle uses a lot of description. You can actually very easily visualize the room or the scene as they take place throughout his stories. Now, again, the narrator of these stories is Dr. John Watson. Actually, his full name is John Hamish Watson. And he takes a degree of medicine from the University of London in 1878. And he goes through the course to be a surgeon in the Army, and he has to go to a special school after college to get that designation. So he graduates from the military surgeon training, and he is immediately sent to India. And he arrives in India, and come to find out, his regiment has been sent to a new battle front in Afghanistan. So he arrives there. He's not there very long, and he is shot in the shoulder by a bullet, almost dies thanks to one of his mates. He's carried out of there and sent to hospital. He's in pretty rough shape, and he is eventually sent back to England to recuperate. And he meets this guy named Stamford. His real name is Mike Stamford, who's a doctor. And they both attended medical school together at St. Bartholomew's Hospital. And Mike Stamford actually goes on to teach there. Stamford also knows Sherlock Holmes, who frequents the hospital doing his own experiments. So Watson is talking to Stamford about how he's looking for an apartment to rent, but things are a little expensive, and he'd like to have a flat share, or two housemates getting together, but to rent a fairly decent place. And Stamford says, "Hey, I know this guy. A little odd, but he's harmless. Named Sherlock Holmes, who is also looking for a flat share." So Stamford brings Watson the next day over to meet Sherlock Holmes. So upon meeting Watson, Holmes says, "How are you?" He said, cordially gripping my hand with the strength for which I should hardly have given him credit. Holmes says, "You've been in Afghanistan, I perceive?" Watson is amazed. He says to Sherlock Holmes, "How on earth do you know that?" So he doesn't get a direct answer right away. But later, they decide to rent an apartment together at 221B Baker Street. And in the 19th century, this was kind of a high-class residential district. From the stories, Watson and Sherlock share the Baker Street apartments from 1881 to 1904. It's a two-bedroom apartment. It's pretty handy as far as being able to get around the city. If you wanted to buy that apartment today, it would cost about $1.5 million American dollars. And we talked about how much money it would actually cost to rent it today. Pretty expensive place. So Watson says that Holmes was certainly not a difficult man to live with. He was quiet in his ways, and his habits were regular. It was rare for him to be up after 10 at night, and he usually had breakfast and was gone before Watson gets up in the morning. Sometimes he spent his day at the chemical laboratory, sometimes in the dissecting rooms, and occasionally in long walks, which appears to take him to the lowest portions of the city. So Sherlock gets out and about. He doesn't just stay in the wealthy, nice residential area. He's walking around in the slums of London as well. And by the cast of characters that we're introduced to along the way, we can see that Sherlock Holmes knows people from every strata of life. So Watson goes on to describe Holmes's physical characteristics. In height, he was rather over 6 feet, and so excessively lean that he seems to be considerably taller. His eyes were sharp and piercing, save during those intervals in which I have alluded, and his thin, hawk-like nose gave his whole expression an air of alertness and decision. His chin, too, had the prominence and squareness which marked the man of determination. His hands were blotted with ink and stained with chemicals, yet he possessed an extraordinary delicacy of touch, as I have frequently observed when I watched him manipulating his fragile philosophical instruments. A few odd characters visit Holmes over the course of the next few weeks, shortly after moving into their Baker Street apartment. And Watson still doesn't quite know yet what Holmes does for a living. It's finally revealed. Well, says Holmes, I have a trade of my own. I suppose I am the only one in the world. I am a consulting detective, if you can understand what that is. Here in London, we have lots of government detectives and lots of private ones. When these fellows are at fault, they come to me, and I manage to put them on the right scent. So he finally kind of figures out what Holmes does for a living and why these kind of odd characters drop by the apartment. Those rules of deduction laid down in that article which aroused your scorn are invaluable to me in practical work. Observation with me is second nature. You appeared to be surprised when I told you on our first meeting that you came from Afghanistan. Watson replies, you were told, no doubt. Holmes says, nothing of the sort. I knew you came from Afghanistan. From long habit, the train of thoughts ran so swiftly through my mind that I arrived at the conclusion without being conscious of intermediate steps. There were such steps, however. The train of reasoning ran. Here is a gentleman of a medical type, but with the air of a military man, clearly an army doctor. Then, he has just come from the tropics, for his face is dark, and that is not the natural tint of his skin, for his wrists are fair. He has undergone hardship and sickness, as his haggard face says clearly. His left arm has been injured. He holds it in a stiff and unnatural manner. Where in the tropics could an English army doctor have seen such hardship and got his arm wounded? Clearly in Afghanistan. The whole train of thought did not occupy a second. I then remarked that you came from Afghanistan, and you were astonished. Watson replies, it is simple enough as you explain it. You remind me of Edgar Allan Poe's Dupin. I had no idea that such individuals did exist outside of stories. Sherlock's amazing perception helps him with crime, but not socially. We've got a quick video here from a recent movie of Sherlock Holmes, and he uses his deduction and character analysis, but it does not go well. Okay, so back to our story. Sherlock Holmes rose and lit his pipe, and he replies, "No doubt you think you are complimenting me and comparing me to Dupin. Now, in my opinion, Dupin was a very inferior fellow. That trick of his breaking in on his friend's thoughts with an appropriate remark after a quarter of an hour's silence is really very showy and superficial. He had some analytical genius, no doubt, but he was by no means such a phenomena as Poe appeared to imagine." So Sherlock is not taking the compliment that Watson says he reminds him of Dupin very well. Okay, so that's it for this slide, and we'll take a look at our next slide from here.